To the girls.
Hi everyone. Your anxiety may not be all in your head, but might have a very physical cause. If you struggle with these kind of things, it doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're a failure or you're not trying hard enough. Sometimes there's just some physical things that maybe you're overlooking, things that are going on in your biology, in your genetics as it pertains to methylation, aka detoxification, and also to your gut as it pertains to the microbiome, which is like the collective sort of little eco-village of flora that's living in there. These can both have a really big effect on your anxiety levels and your functioning. How a vitamin cured my anxiety. Eliza Black's story of lifelong struggle and new hope for the future. This woman suffered her entire life from really crippling anxiety, and she'd been through all the psych treatments, different psych medications like SSRIs and things, and cognitive behavioral therapy, but with little improvement, and things were getting worse and worse. It turned out that she has a genetic methylation defect called MTHFR, which stands for methylfolate receptor. The result was that her body had trouble processing B group vitamins. In enriched foods, they put folic acid, but if you have MTHFR, it's not going to do you any good. And so she started supplementing with folinic acid instead, which is the active form, and that remedied the problem. And the other thing is, people who have these kind of defects, they could even have what look like normal B12 levels and yet not be using B12 properly in their body. The kind that you get in the vitamin bottle, it may not do you any good because it's usually cyanocobalamin for once, which isn't the active form. And the other thing is that the active form, methylcobalamin, is not absorbed well when you just swallow it. So people take B12 shots or take a form that's absorbed through the gums. B vitamin deficiencies can really cause a lot of apparently psychiatric symptoms, but see, they're not really mental, they're physical. Case report, catatonia and other psychiatric symptoms with B12 deficiency. You're not necessarily going to end up catatonic, but you might end up with like all kinds of crippling anxiety and depression and problems. So does that mean you should run out and start taking B12? Well, I would say no. Are vitamins triggering your anxiety? Well, you're trying to avoid having anxiety, so you don't want the vitamins to be triggering anxiety. But sometimes it's like that. You think, oh well, I read this thing, and so maybe that's my problem. I'm going to go out and get this stuff. Maybe it's going to help, and maybe it actually make it worse. So what they're saying here in this article is that in some cases, B vitamins, because they're so stimulating, they can actually make you feel all wired up. You have to consult a health professional on these kinds of things. I just want to make you aware that there are these genetic defects that can interfere with how you use B vitamins, and that this can really affect how you feel and how you think. There is a genetic test that you can do through a company like 23andMe, and you can find out if you have this or other mutations. Now, here's another thing that can cause anxiety, and this has to do with the gut. Mounting research shows gut-brain connection. Your gut health is very intimately connected with your psychological or psychiatric health on many levels. And one interesting thing about the gut is that there are glial cells in it. Glial cells are a kind of brain cell. This study says microbiotic controls homeostasis of glial cells in the gut lamina propria. Your gut flora will affect how the brain cells that are in your gut will actually function. And then, of course, those cells are going to affect how your neurology functions as a whole. The GAPS diet. This is a diet that was developed by Dr. Campbell McBride, and which is intended to remedy the gut, like to fix your gut, to fix your brain, or your thinking and your functioning. It's something to look into. This was really interesting. Anxiety in your head could come from your gut. As I was saying, the two are very connected. Well, this article is particularly interesting because it's about, there was this young woman who struggled with anxiety all her life through high school, and it was absolutely debilitating. And then eventually she had a doctor who tested her for Clostridium, which is a bacteria in your gut that, if you have too much of it, and it produces neurotoxins. If you have too much of it, you get too much of these neurotoxins, and they can lead to strange behavior like a lot of anxiety and maybe kind of OCD type behavior. So she was tested for Clostridium, and it turned out she had it. So what her doctor did was he loaded her up on probiotics, and then he used an antibiotic to kill the Clostridia. again, another reason why it's so important to consult a professional when you're trying to deal with this kind of stuff. I mean, it's all well and good if you say to yourself, you know, I don't want to go see the shrinks. What can they really do for me? I kind of feel that way about psychiatry largely. You know, their medicines are just sort of band-aid solutions that may or may not do anything better to address the underlying problems. But you really need help doing it. I mean, if you go and you get a test and, you know, turns out you don't have Clostridia, well, then you don't want to take vancomycin. Nobody's going to prescribe it to you anyway. Good to know, though, if you do have it, that, you know, maybe you're not just a control freak. Maybe you really have something wrong with your gut flora. Gut flora is so important in general. Like this article says, you know, low levels of healthy gut bacteria could be the cause of mental health issues such as anxiety and schizophrenia. I don't think it's like the cause of schizophrenia. There's a lot of other factors in there. But really, I would recommend that you take a look at this kind of information if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, lack of energy. You know, stuff like this can affect so much about your personality, how argumentative you are versus how easygoing. How social you feel, how flexible your mind is, a lot of things. I mean, you know, the biomed parents know this from trying to recover their ASD kids or kids with other problems. Like, get kind of familiar with this stuff, but it's not just for autistic children. I mean, anyone can benefit from this, and we all want to be at our best, right? So I hope this is helpful to you, and let me know what you think. Thank you for giving this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.